NHL Historic Draft Simulation number 10. In the final episode of this Historic Draft Simulation, I will have a major makeover of the rosters and then simulate 3 seasons using the rosters. For the Scramble Draft, every team has to give up a key forward and a key defenseman on their team and make them eligible for the draft. The draft order is determined by a random number generator and will be a snake format. NHL Scramble Draft 10. New York Rangers draft Marcel Dion, Boston Bruins draft Rob Blake, Buffalo Sabres draft Doug Gilmour, Calgary Flames draft Joe Nieuwendyk, LA Kings draft Chris Chelios, New Jersey Devils draft Mark Howe, Edmonton Oilers draft Duncan Keith, Winnipeg Jets draft Drew Doughty, Detroit Red Wings draft Bernie Federko, New York Islanders draft Theo Fleury, Toronto Maple Leafs draft Doug Bentley, Colorado Avalanche draft Nikita Kucherov, Vancouver Canucks draft Erik Karlsson, Washington Capitals draft Roman Josi, Dallas Stars draft Doug Wilson, St. Louis Blues draft Evgeny Malkin, Montreal Canadiens draft Bernie Geoffrion, Philadelphia Flyers draft Ted Kennedy, Chicago Blackhawks draft Pavel Datsyuk, Pittsburgh Penguins draft Bernie Nichols, and the Hartford Whalers draft Anze Kopitar. Round 2. Hartford Whalers draft King Clancy, Pittsburgh Penguins draft Ryan Rafalski, Chicago Blackhawks draft Teppo Numminen, Philadelphia Flyers draft Steve Duchesne, Montreal Canadiens draft Brent Burns, St. Louis Blues draft Wade Redden, Dallas Stars draft Nicholas Backstrom, Washington Capitals draft Roy Conacher, Vancouver Canucks draft David Pastrnak, Colorado Avalanche draft Andrei Markov, Toronto Maple Leafs draft Thomas Kaberle, New York Islanders draft Dougie Hamilton, Detroit Red Wings draft Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Winnipeg Jets draft Camille Henry, Edmonton Oilers draft Vic Hadfield, New Jersey Devils draft Max Bentley, LA Kings draft Bill Hay, Calgary Flames draft Kevin Hatcher, Buffalo Sabres draft Miro Heiskanen, Boston Bruins draft Alexei Yashin, and the New York Rangers draft Quinn Hughes. After the draft, a few trades are made. Boston Bruins trade Alexei Kovalev, Jason Arnott, and Bruce Driver to the Winnipeg Jets for Claude Giroux, Scott Gomez, and Darian Hatcher. Colorado Avalanche trade Patrick Sharp, Tim Kerr, and Derek Morris to the Pittsburgh Penguins for Rick Vaive, Steve Shutt, and Kevin Lowe. Detroit Red Wings trade Danny Heatley, John Ostrowski, and Tyson Barrie to the Philadelphia Flyers for Rick Nash, Bill Guerin, and Fergie Flaman. New Jersey Devils trade Corey Perry, Matt Duchesne, and James Patrick to the Vancouver Canucks for Reggie Leach, Ryan Bellows, and Sylvain Cote. New York Rangers trade Dave Babich, Pete Mahavlik, and Mark Savard to the Buffalo Sabres for Igor Larionov, Sid Howe, and Steve Smith. The changes in the draft have a major effect on the upcoming simulation. In first place in the Clarence Campbell Conference are the Colorado Avalanche, followed by the St. Louis Blues, Winnipeg Jets, Chicago Blackhawks, Calgary Flames, LA Kings, Edmonton Oilers, and Vancouver Canucks. Missing the playoffs in the Clarence Campbell Conference are the Dallas Stars and Detroit Red Wings. In first place in the Prince of Wales Conference are the New York Rangers, followed by the Hartford Whalers, New Jersey Devils, Pittsburgh Penguins, New York Islanders, Toronto Maple Leafs, Montreal Canadiens, and Buffalo Sabres. Missing the playoffs in the Prince of Wales Conference are the Boston Bruins, Washington Capitals, and Philadelphia Flyers. The St. Louis Blues win the Stanley Cup in 6 games over the New York Rangers. After the season, a few trades are made. Boston Bruins trade Paul Kariya, Rick Tocchet, and Ian Turnbull to the Winnipeg Jets for Lanny McDonald, Camille Henry, and Dave Ellett. Dallas Stars trade Dustin Byfuglien, Thomas Vanek, and George Armstrong to the Chicago Blackhawks for Morgan Riley, Gabriel Landeskog, and Miroslav Shatan. Detroit Red Wings trade Jaromir Jagr and Gary Roberts to the Calgary Flames for Daniel Alfredson and Kirk Muller. Philadelphia Flyers trade Dickie Moore, Ryan O'Reilly, and Brent Seabrook to the Vancouver Canucks for Paul Reinhart, Rick Martin, and Rick McLeish. Washington Capitals trade Joe Mullen, Roy Conacher, and Randy Carlyle to the Buffalo Sabres for Pavel Bure, Patrick Marleau, and Daryl Sador. The changes in the offseason will have a major effect on the next simulation. In first place in the Clarence Campbell Conference are the Colorado Avalanche, followed by the Calgary Flames, LA Kings, St. Louis Blues, Winnipeg Jets, Edmonton Oilers, Chicago Blackhawks, and Dallas Stars. Missing the playoffs in the Clarence Campbell Conference are the Vancouver Canucks and Detroit Red Wings. In first place in the Prince of Wales Conference are the New York Rangers, followed by the Hartford Whalers, New Jersey Devils, Montreal Canadiens, New York Islanders, Toronto Maple Leafs, Pittsburgh Penguins, and Buffalo Sabres. Missing the playoffs in the Prince of Wales Conference are the Washington Capitals, Philadelphia Flyers, and Boston Bruins. The Calgary Flames win the Stanley Cup in 6 games over the Hartford Whalers. After the season, a few trades are made. Boston Bruins trade Scott Gomez, Alexei Yashin, and Mike Richter to the Toronto Maple Leafs for Ron Hextall, Gary Unger, and Sean Monahan. Detroit Red Wings trade Elmer Like, Cy Deneny, and Red Horner to the New York Islanders for Marcus Naslund, Henrik Zetterberg, and Dougie Hamilton. Philadelphia Flyers trade Wayne Cashman, Eric Desjardins, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins to the St. Louis Blues for Chris Letang, Pat Verbeek, and Steve Thomas. Vancouver Canucks trade Bobby Smith, Ray Whitney, and Pierre Pilot to the Edmonton Oilers for Duncan Keith, Ryan Getzlaf, and Dean Prentice. Washington Capitals trade Dave Keon, Patrick Laine, and Owen Nolan to the Buffalo Sabres for Peter Forsberg, Phil Kessel, and Pete Mahavlik. The changes in the offseason will have a major effect on the next simulation. In first place in the Clarence Campbell Conference are the Colorado Avalanche, followed by the Calgary Flames, LA Kings, Winnipeg Jets, St. Louis Blues, Chicago Blackhawks, Edmonton Oilers, and Vancouver Canucks. Missing the playoffs in the Clarence Campbell Conference are the Dallas Stars and Detroit Red Wings. In first place in the Prince of Wales Conference are the New York Rangers, followed by the Hartford Whalers, New Jersey Devils, New York Islanders, Montreal Canadiens, Pittsburgh Penguins, Boston Bruins, and Buffalo Sabres. Missing the playoffs in the Prince of Wales Conference are the Washington Capitals, Toronto Maple Leafs, and Philadelphia Flyers. The LA Kings won the Stanley Cup in 6 games over the New York Islanders. Stay tuned for a new mini-series on my channel, NHL Reentry Draft.